temperature rise that's taking place. The temperature gets transmitted into the surface water, gets conducted down, gets mixed out,
mixing different
that goes on in the natural world before humans were affected.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's to me it's.
But the lag times can be great.
The lag times can be great. And
800 and 1500 years.
But we've never had such a rapid rise.
Speak of the devil, this is one of the documentary makers.
Is that right?
Yeah, I was wondering if
Good, are you?
if you want to give him, you can say anything you want to him.
No, I'm not. I got to go.
We need to head
I
off.
know we have to go.
Petition, and they have there a review of peer-reviewed literature. This article looks like a scientific article, and at the bottom it says Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons, and this is about atmospheric science, and that is not peer. So peer review has been misused just as much as a lot of other words in this whole business.
Have you read the leaked email?
I waited until the actual emails were published, about 2 weeks later, and what I found was a bunch of scientists grousing about the fact that nature, of course, has functions that go with bumps on them, and right now it wasn't getting hot as fast as they had feared or hoped or whatever. But they did not falsify data. They were grousing among themselves. What can we do to maintain people's awareness of the seriousness of the problem, because the problem is still serious?
Have any of you looked into the data? I mean,
Yes.
You're
Yes.
saying this is what the peer reviews done. Has anyone actually looked at what they've done? Okay. And the stuff they do doesn't bother you in the least?
What do you mean bother?
The construction of the data sets, the picking and choosing, the cherry picking of the data. For instance,
Who
here's the
told
best.
you that it's cherry picked?
I'll just give you the greatest example ever. Okay, you have multiple.
Got a camera on us?
You got this fired up? Well, here, I'd like to hear a scientist that's willing to squelch me in there. I'd like to hear this answer. This is a very simple answer. And because of what I look at is I look at the data constructions. And what I consider, if I was doing it, I would consider it fraud. Now, there's multiple data sets. And the best analogy is, if I'm out there and I'm going to measure let's say I'm a pitcher, and I'm going to throw a baseball, I'm going to measure it. Now, today, we have radar. You can also do it with a stopwatch. Now, if every scientist here knew we had a radar to measure that ball, and I went out there with a stopwatch, what would you think?
What does this have to do with
I'm
atmospheric
going to get to that.
measurements?
I'm going to get to that.
Well, get us to the science.
Okay, well, my point is...
We know what science is about. We know what a good evaluation of the scientific...
That's why I'm kind of curious why you would be supporting if that's true. Because if you take a look at the data sets that they're relying on, they're using the NOAA data sets. They're using the ground measurements. Take a look at the most accurate measurement, the satellite data. They're totally conflicting data sets. The only way you can make this argument that we're warming is if you choose to use the data set that they know is highly biased on the upside.
Well, you're telling me they're totally conflicting, and I don't
Sure.
believe that, because I know what I was talking about in there is you can make very good measurements from the Earth, because you can look right up past where we can to the stratosphere from here, and you can look down from the satellite. But if you're looking down, you're measuring a different number than if you're looking up. So,
As a physicist, would you agree with
they're
that?
not to be compared.
As a physicist from OSU,
I think
would you agree with that?
Quit now the conversation,
Yes,
and I thank you for your
he doesn't want to be
contribution.
quoted, but
All right.
And if you have then a real debate with the Professor Thompson, I will come.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we got to get him in. He won't debate me because we're not peer reviewing, he said.
no, but
But-
this is not
but-
cherry
but-
Why don't you
picking.
just
This is not
do it?
cherry
I
picking.
did. Matter of fact, just before you guys leave, let me make sure you understand what I've done. I've offered to make sure I can bring in Dr. Singer, Dr. Linson, or Dr. Christie, or Dr. Ball, or Steve McIntyre to come in and debate him. If he's willing to do it, I'll bring those guys in.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay?
Are they peer reviewed?
Oh, certainly. Dr. Singer, Dr. Linson, Dr. Soon, Sally Brunis, we'll bring him in if he'll debate. Or at least I'll try to bring him in. Thanks.
We wouldn't
again.
be debating about the same words.
Oh my God, you missed it. They brought in everybody in there trying to quelch me. They literally, these are people from OSU, and their objective here was to make sure the skeptical view is not presented at school. You had Dr. Thompson, you had his wife. This is unbelievable. They brought in everybody out there just because of what I'm doing. They brought these big guns in here, the biggest guns you can imagine, Dr. Thompson, to make sure that the school board knew they don't want to see the skeptical view in this in the public school system. I even offered to say, look, I'll come in here, Dr. Thompson can come up and show you where I'm wrong. He, of course, turns it down, and they rely on this thing. He's not peer-reviewed. Well, as the emails prove, you're never going to get peer-reviewed unless you toe the line. So then I offered to bring in peer-reviewed scientists, and of course, he backed away. He turned down every single offer. They said, well, I can probably bring in Dr. Linzen, or I can possibly bring in Dr. Soon. I could at least work on bringing these people in here. Of course, he said no. He certainly won't talk with Steve McIntyre. And by the way, Dr. Thompson had the opportunity to speak on camera. He chose not to.